Hello. The staff required for the efficient running of an English country house had to be recruited. Long service was commonplace, but there was turnover. Local families were often a source of labour, as were newspaper advertisements, especially the Times and Morning Post, and later in the Victorian period, recruitment agencies specialising in domestic servants. Advertisements for maids frequently stipulated no followers, effectively imposing chastity on applicants. Letters between aristocratic families frequently contained information about servants and requests for references. Religion was an issue. Servants were expected to go to church on Sunday and sit discreetly at the back, of course, and even there pews might be set out in order of rank. To identify themselves as servants, female staff had to wear bonnets and not hats to church. Anglican families might be wary of employing Roman Catholics or nonconformists in case their beliefs interfered with their duties. Conversely, Catholic estates, for example the heirs of Hassop Hall in Derbyshire, preferred to employ Roman Catholics, having All Saints Church, built in neoclassical Greek temple style in 1816, to accommodate their sizable congregation. In many areas, it was traditional for live-in female servants to be given the day off on Mothering Sunday, the fourth Sunday in Lent, for a visit home, taking a gift of simnel cake, a light fruit cake with marzipan, or to attend the church where they were baptised. Most market towns held annual mop or statute hiring fairs. The mops date from the 1351 Statute of Labourers, an attempt to regulate the labour market after the ravages of the Black Death, and were mainly targeted at agricultural workers. But domestic servants also took the opportunity to find suitable positions. There were variations, but traditionally mop fairs were held on Michaelmas Day, the 29th of September, and after the calendar change of 1752, when 11 days were lost, the 10th of October, after the harvest season. Mop fairs were popular. It was a day out with entertaining sideshows, as well as an opportunity to find work. In rural areas they continued into the early 20th century. Many towns continue to hold them now solely as fun fairs. Those looking for work would wear or carry something to show the type of post they were seeking. In Chapter 6 of Far From the Madding Crowd, Thomas Hardy describes the annual hiring fair at his fictional Wessex town of Casterbridge, based on Dorchester. At one end of the street stood from 200 to 300 blithe and hearty labourers waiting upon chance. All men of the stamp to whom labour suggests nothing worse than a wrestle with gravitation, and pleasure nothing better than a renunciation of the same. Among these, carters and waggoners were distinguished by having a piece of whipcord twisted round their hats. Thatchers wore a fragment of woven straw. Shepherds held their sheep crooks in their hands, and thus the situation was known to hirers at a glance. A housemaid might carry a mop or just a mop head. When terms were agreed, there would usually be a nominal payment, perhaps a shilling to seal the deal. Contracts were typically for 51 weeks, to avoid a servant qualifying for settlement as a resident and potentially a drain on the parish should they lose their job or be unable to work and support themselves for some reason. Although an amendment to the Poor Law of 1834 repealed the Settlement Act, the principle remained in force until 1876. Servants received their pay at the end of the agreed term, with board and keep provided in between, along with any tips. In 1777, with the government looking for ever more inventive ways of raising revenue, faced with the cost of the American War of Independence, Chancellor of the Exchequer, Lord North, came up with the idea of taxing families for their servants. It was intended as a temporary measure, but when war with France followed, it was kept in place, and with various revisions continued to be levied until 1852. It was among several taxes aimed at what were deemed luxuries that included clocks and watches, playing cards and dice, and hair powder. The royal family were exempted. Initially it applied to male servants classed as non-essential, a potentially difficult definition that covered butlers, grooms, valets, gardeners and coachmen, but not farm labourers. In the 1780s it was extended to cover gamekeepers and female servants, and a progressive element was introduced, so that the tax increased the more servants were employed, with allowances made for bachelors. Francis Russell, Duke of Bedford, had his hair cut unfashionably short for the period in what became known as the Bedford level or crop, in order to avoid the £1 a year tax on hair powder, and argued he should only have to pay tax on liveried servants. The tax commissioners disagreed and imposed a late payment penalty. Next time, how visiting country houses became increasingly popular from the mid-18th century. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.